Hello, and welcome to Cutting Through. I'm Mitchell Plitnick. The New York Times broke a bombshell of a story on Tuesday with the claim that the United States and Israel had launched the war on Iran with a plan to install a new friendly ruler of Iran after they killed the leadership that existed at the time, which of course they did. Um, it's the identity of that person that would be such a shock, I think, to anybody. And that person turns out to be former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, a man who was notorious for his anti-Israel, anti-American, anti-Western stances, quite a hardliner, supporter of the Iranian nuclear program. Seemingly everything that they hated about Iran. That part, you can explain away. Uh, you can make the case, I suppose, that that was a long time ago. That things have happened since then. He has emerged most certainly as somebody that the Iranian government did not like anymore. He was pushed out. He was barred from running several times again for public office by the Council of Guardians, which decides who can and can't run in Iran. They have elections that, by all accounts, are fair as far as they go, but the way they're controlled is by controlling who's allowed to run. Um, anyway, he would be somebody that I suppose people would see as potentially now having changed his stances because of his animosity to the uh, the man who was Ali Khamenei, who was the supreme leader. And his general oppositional stance, he's accused the government of corruption and things of that nature. And apparently, he was therefore seen, according to the Times report, as somebody who would play the role, for example, that Delcy Rodriguez has played in Venezuela since the United States, kidnapped Nicolas Maduro, brought him back to the United States, installed Rodriguez in his place, and she was clearly a person with whom they could do business. I seem to be alone in this because it does seem like a lot of people I respect very much are taking this story at face value. I really find it dubious. I think I'm not saying that it's completely made up. I think there is something there. I just don't think it's quite what's being presented. Um, the problem I have comes down to basically this. There's no way in reality that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad could have become the ruler of Iran. No matter, even if the war that Donald Trump was fantasizing about, that they would come in and they would kill the top leadership of Iran, the government would basically fall apart, they'd install a friendly government, and everything would go much again like it did in Venezuela. Um, Even if that had happened, Ahmadinejad wasn't the guy who could do that. Delcy Rodriguez, let's remember, was second in command in Venezuela. She was part of the Maduro government. She was the vice president. She was the next in line. It was an easy transition. There's no clear path for Ahmadinejad to legally take over, so he would need support. He would need domestic support, and he's basically bled domestic support since his term as president. There may, in fact, be some sectors in Iran, it's always hard to tell these things, where he has some support, uh, maybe among hardliners who see him as both someone who they ideologically agree with and somebody who then stood against corrupt elements in the hardline Iranian government. And one can see that, but there's no clear groundswell of support for him, and there's certainly no way for him into the government. There were no open doors. There were no people waiting for Ahmadinejad to come back and assume a leadership role. The IRGC, which is the effective rulers, certainly right now, of Iran. And even before Ali Khamenei was killed, they were hugely powerful. They were the decisive force in governing Iran. Despised Ahmadinejad. He also, is a bit of a loose cannon. He is somebody who you have to really question his judgment. He's the person who, when people talk about the fiery rhetoric that comes out of Iran, not all hardliners all talk like he did. He really came up with some doozies. He was the one who flirted a lot with apocalyptic language about Israel, even though he was often mistranslated. He was the one who attended a Holocaust denial conference, so casting Iran in the role of real anti-Semitism, that was pretty much undeniable. He did things that were apparently either intended or just done with indifference to, completely angering Iran's adversaries and making it harder for even hardliners who were trying to find some sort of reasonable path forward to do so. More than that, in more recent years, Ahmadinejad has been rumored to have been a collaborator now with Israel. So it comes on, on the other side where his credibility in Iran was being eroded. His former top aide was actually publicly accused of spying for Israel. He made a number of suspicious trips in recent years to like Guatemala and Hungary, places that Israel had very, very strong relationships to, but that he could still go to. He obviously couldn't just take a trip to the United States. And this gave rise to suspicion that he was actually somebody who was collaborating on some level with Israel. So, beyond the fact that there's no clear mechanism to putting him in power, I don't see that there was any real potential for him to be able to assume power, to get the sort of groundswell behind him. There seems, from all indications, to be less support for him than even for Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the former Shah. So I just find this story very dubious. The Times itself, raises some of these questions, just raises them as questions and say, we don't know how they were planning to install him, for example. And I can see where, if you're basically buying the story, as it's being told to the reporters. And again, I should be clear about this. I don't think the Times in any way made this up. I think they got it from American officials, just as they said they did. So if I believe that, and yet I'm dubious about the story, what do I think? My theory, my guess, and I have no evidence for this as yet, is that this might have been something that Israel sold to Trump. My issue that Ahmadinejad could not take over is something that Israel had to know. Israel's intelligence on Iran is excellent. We have seen the evidence of that over and over and over again. Israel knows what's going on in Iran. They understand Iranian politics. They understand what's happening. So when they do something that seems to underestimate Iran, I think you have to wonder what they're really trying to do. In other words, I don't think Israel ever believed that just by killing the top leadership of Iran, the government was going to collapse. I think what Israel believed was that they were going to be able to get the United States to really devastate Iran to such a point that the country was basically destroyed, not just the government. I think that's what Israel has been pushing for. I've been saying that from the beginning, that this was Israel's goal in the war, was to effectively destroy Iran, turn it into more or less into Syria, and they've been trying to find a plan B ever since Trump has more or less backed off of that, while not incidentally giving up on trying to convince him to do that. Therefore, I think they did quite a bit to convince Trump of the ease of potentially undoing the Iranian government. I think that is I think that part that is popularly believed is accurate. I think that the evidence is pretty clear that Israel convinced Trump that this would be easy, even though they knew it wouldn't be. And I think they also convinced, if this story is to be believed at all, if there's any truth to it, I think they convinced Trump that he could put Ahmadinejad in and he would be cooperative, even though they knew that that was really not possible. I think that is, I think they convinced Trump that Ahmadinejad was a different man now, and that his experiences with the government in Iran made him somebody Trump could work with. And indeed, as I said, Ahmadinejad had said publicly that he felt that Trump was a person who was a businessman and I can do business with him. He has said that publicly. So I think all of that came together to help Israel convince Trump that this would happen. I don't think this was ever a real plan, at least from the Israeli side. And I think to the extent that it was an American idea or an American intention, it came from Israel. And again, the bottom line is Israel's just not stupid enough to believe this. Israel's not ignorant enough of Iran to believe this. The United States, unfortunately, is, and this is where the power is. So I think that that's what this is about, and I think it is indeed further evidence of what I have said from the beginning, which is that the United States never had a clue what it was doing in this war. The president of the United States had his ears filled with nonsense from both Israelis and hawks, Iran hawks here in the U.S. Lindsey Graham probably chief among them. I'm sure Marco Rubio was not far behind. But I think that Trump was convinced that it would be reasonably easy. Maybe he thought it would be a little more difficult than Venezuela, but not by much. I think he thought that you could effectively win this war by decapitating the Iranian leadership. That was never the case, and anyone who understood Iran would and could have told him that. And I think that the government of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu specifically felt that they had an opportunity after decades of trying to convince the United States to go to war against Iran. They had an opportunity with an idiot in the White House to actually make that happen. And they convinced him not only that it would be easy, but they also convinced him of what a huge thing it would be, that he would be the guy who after, as he loves to keep saying, after 47 years, finally took out those evil Iranians. I think that to the extent that this story in the Times is true, this was a part of that. I think when the book is written on this war, it is going to be such a story of shame of the United States, and how easily the Israeli far right and the pro-Israeli far right manipulated a sitting U.S. president, and how the United States population, quite frankly, elected an idiot twice to run this country. And that, as as many usually conservatives like to say, elections have consequences. And we are living with those consequences, as is the entire world right now. But anyone who thought that Mahmoud Ahmadinejad could possibly have become the new leader of Iran has no understanding of Iran, and certainly has no standing to make any foreign policy decisions whatsoever. If you can be that ignorant and still claim to have some ability to rationally decide something. So I leave it there. If you appreciated this video, please support the work of Cutting Through. We are only sustained by you. If you can donate, you'll see how on your screen and in the description below. If you can become a paid subscriber, you'll see how to do that. You can also become a free subscriber, or you can simply like and share this video and help spread the word of independent media and independent analysis. And I will be talking to you soon.